This is Professor of Medicine, Desiree Dubonnet, the man who left America to find freedom, who's no longer a man. Today I'm going to be outlining something very, very powerful, the new form of medicine. Very, very exciting. New form of medicine, intention medicine. All medicine is intention. Those who are proficient at using intention will be good doctors. Let's take some look into the laws of physics and the laws of mysticism and try to explore intention.
Focus really hard. Do my powers of quantum mechanics allow me to manifest reality? No.
We now know from quantum theory that we cannot manifest, create, or control the reality around us, but we can affect the reality around us. Not only can we affect the reality around us, but we also are in complete control of our interpretation of the reality around us. We can interpret what is happening.
Niels Bohr insisted that it was meaningless to assign reality to the universe in the absence of observation. In the intervals between measurements, quantum systems truly exist as a fuzzy mixture of all possible properties, what we call a superposition of states. Schrödinger, in his 1958 lectures Mind and Matter, states that consciousness is needed to make physical reality meaningful. With the greats of quantum physics inclined to speak in these mystical terms, it's not surprising that the ideas stuck around.
At first, it appeared that we created our reality by our observation of it. But now we know that there is a reality that exists outside, and we interpret it, but we also can't affect it. Our minds can affect the reality, but not in 100% control. We do not manifest or create it.
And yet, the most confident claims about quantum mechanics seem to be the mystical ones. They tend to be made by people who have never studied the theory deeply, but nonetheless have great surety in cherry-picking and misinterpreting the early speculations of some of its founders. Those founders did question the role of consciousness and the connection between subjective and objective reality, and they were right to do so. The weird behavior of the quantum world demanded the courageous and open-minded speculation that characterizes a great scientist. But the other quality of a great scientist is openness to changing your mind. And most of them did change their minds, veering away from the idea of a direct causal role of consciousness.
One camp had the idea, like Einstein did, that there was a realistic, concrete universe that we were part of, that we observed. And the other side said that no, we created this. But actuality, now we find out that both of these are true to a certain extent, but neither completely true. And now we can understand more by accepting the blend of these two contrary ideas.
In Heisenberg's later writing, he states that the wave function collapse must be a continuous process between the measurement device and the conscious mind, and definitely not a sudden event caused by the latter. Wigner too, he switched camps and spoke against the notion of the primary role of consciousness. He denied what he called the solipsistic view that the mind is foremost, that consciousness generates the universe.
So in Januszian fashion, seeing both sides of the coin, that there was indeed a realistic universe that the mind could affect. But consciousness is not absolute primary creating the universe, but it is primary in interpreting the universe. And it can definitely affect the universe. We do have subtle control over things. We can maneuver things. We can make the world a better place.
In between observations, the wave function describing this superposition is a complete description of reality, and our experience of a well-defined material universe only has meaning at the moment of measurement.
Our observation of the universe makes the universe visible as we start to then see and experience. These experiences have an effect on the reality. And then we interpret, through our own context and through our own background, we interpret our reality. We 100% interpret things. But we do not 100% create things. Things will happen, and we can help to affect them in subtle ways. And with more and more practice, we can make them even more effective. We can build our abilities.
What is it about The Secret that made everything move so fast? It was the concept, the one concept. It was called the law of attraction. Do you know that you are a molecular structure? Your brain is an electronic switching station. Activate brain cells and you alter the vibration you're in. This whole universe operates by law, and one of the laws is the law of vibration. The vibration you're in is going to dictate what you attract.
But is this a law? Is it the law of attraction, the law of vibration? These people don't quite seem to understand. You see, physical laws play a crucial role in science, and they're considered as fundamental. Many laws of physics are built after years and years of research to really study and to make the assumption that the laws, such as the law of gravity, you drop an object, it falls. Okay, this is a law. It's not a maybe sometimes. Like, it's a basic law that 99.9999% of the time, the objects will attract. The law about the reaction and the speed of a moving fluid, this is what allows airplanes to fly, and they fly. It's a law. It's repeatable. It's observable. The law of gas and pressure about the volume has a distinct law about it that we can understand from the levels of science. The force between electric charges allows us to understand and develop electrical items. These are scientific laws, well established and tested. Now, when you get to the laws of physics, this is the bottom line. A law in physics is determined by how well you can predict future events. Not how well you look back in hindsight, but how well you can look forward and predict future events. They say that somebody deserved to be hit by the golf ball. If that was the case, would we be able to predict who it is?
Guess what, folks?
That got hit?
No, somebody.
If you had a science, and it was the law of attraction, the person who needed to be hit would be hit. And you would be able to predict it in the future, not in
I think there's a cameraman almost in his line.
These
I think
people
he might have got hit.
I think he called it. It obviously went left. It sounded like
in
it.
hindsight. They're going to say that this person deserved to have this happen. Is that the case? Did she deserve that? Is the person who's out there about to be hit by the golf ball, did they deserve this? Is that the world that we want to live in? No, it's not a law of attraction. There's an effect. Did this girl deserve this? Or did maybe just shit happen? Do we want to go through and tell all of our patients that what happened to them, they brought on, that the person who was hit by this golf ball
it went up and down
deserved
these
that?
trees just right of the fairway.
Here's
and
the golf balls that the
literally
guy
fell
parked.
straight into the pocket of a spectator that was actually
Very
trying to get out of the
interesting.
way.
Could we have predicted
And
that?
believe it or not,
No.
it's still in his pocket right now.
Could we have said he deserved it? Which of these people deserved? No. Did they all deserve it? If it is truly a law of attraction, we would be able to predict
If your head was a touch softer, I'd be in the fairway.
what was going to happen. We would be able to see into the future, not by just hindsight.
With the Ramons
But
among
that is
thousands
not the
lining the
case.
fairway for this Brooks Koepka shot,
We can't
few
just
could have foreseen what was to
predict.
follow.
So it's not
Suddenly,
quite a law. There is an effect.
I feel something
There is definitely
on
an
me.
effect. And yes, maybe that person celebrated a little too early and the other person deserved it. But which of these people deserves to win the gold medal in speed skating? Which of these people? If there was a law, we wouldn't need to do the race. We would just know ahead of time. out of the 35 people who started and tried to get into it, here, this person come in second in one of the preliminary heats, allowed him to get into the semifinals. We're in the semifinals. Here again, an accident happens that allows him to get into the final. And here we have the final. Who's going to win? Is it who deserves it more, who practiced more? The one with the most positivity? The one with the most negativity? Or maybe we just don't know.
Maybe we just don't know.
Because, look what happens. 2 laps to go.
The result happens in the moment, and we don't know what it will be.
There is no law. Here what happens is a couple of people go down, and the last place guy wins the gold medal.
Unexpectedly, because of an accident.
Are these accidents happening because they deserve it, or is it just happenstance? Did she deserve that? Did she make that football hit her in the head? Is this happening because she deserves it or wants it?
It happens because of nature.
We have to recognize it is not a law. If there was a law, we would know which of these firemen is going to be hurt, or if any of them, if it was a law.
Nature is a law, but is constantly changing, so we just don't know.
The big secret is that there is not a law of attraction. There is an effect of attraction. And that sometimes we just don't know. Does your mind cause everything that happens to you? Here's the kidnapping scene from Silence of the Lambs, based on a true story. She offers to help a person with difficulty.
Can I help you with that?
There are people believing in the secret, the law of attraction, and they will tell you that you cause 100% of all the things that happen to you. But that's a type of extremism that needs to be avoided.
It was a pure tragedy. 3 people killed on Christmas Day 2007 as they drove on US 19 in Hudson. But the Spring Hill man who pleaded guilty to DUI manslaughter is now using the civil trial to put the blame on the man driving the car he hit.
The victims in this case aren't here to tell their side of the story. Gerard and Denise Bassey, the high school sweethearts who left behind 3 grieving daughters, and Ray and Linda McWilliams, married for 23 years. Ray was driving.
These people and their survivors, they did not cause this to happen in their life. They did not make this happen in their mind. It's just not true.
This did not have to happen. This event was 100% avoidable.
Attorneys for the victims' relatives told the jury no amount of money will bring back those who were killed.
Person who accepts responsibility for the damage that he caused in the collision that occurred that day doesn't turn around and tell you that Raymond McWilliams is at fault.
Belniak's sister is representing him in a countersuit, saying he deserves money for his medical bills.
We must explore personal responsibility and try to accept that things happen, but we do not cause all the things that happen to us. You see, we are all taught to help people in need. This is our upbringing. We are humans. We work together. We're a society. We need to be able to help people in need. And when we help others, the world's a better place, but we need to recognize that they're evil people.
Pictures of 28-year-old Simone Duran are how her 2 young daughters will have to remember her.
They miss her and they ask about her every day. They wake up in the middle of the night crying for her.
Just 3 and 4 years old, motherless, because she did the right thing. In 2018, after Duran stepped up to pick out a shooting suspect in a lineup, she was lured, kidnapped, shot 10 times, and killed before her body was set on fire.
It would be really, really cruel to tell the children, to tell the survivors, that they caused this. Now, the judge is going to be very strict because this was a gang event. And he needs to make sure that the proper people are punished. In this world, there are evil people. It happens every place throughout entire recorded history. There are evil people that hurt people, that have evil intent. We cannot change our entire society and stop helping people. But we need to also stop telling people that they're responsible for the things that happen to them like this. Yes, you can.
I want to push it all the way up.
You can't help people.
I really appreciate it.
But you have to be cautious.
That's great.
In our society.
Hey, are you about a size 14?
Help them more than you
The vicious attack on a teenage girl outside a library left her paralyzed and blind. Kendrick Morris was supposed to serve 65 years in prison, but an appeals court ordered Morris resentenced because he was a teenager when that crime happened.
A life sentence for a rapist who left a young woman for dead 9 years ago.
I want to say that it's a victory, but it seems wrong to say that.
Kendrick Morris showed little emotion as the judge read his decision. Afterward, the loved ones of the woman he nearly killed shared a tearful embrace.
I believe justice was served, but in the end, you know, both lives now are sentenced to life.
Life in prison is the outcome Anna Donato wanted for Morris.
This woman did not cause this accident to happen, this horrible thing to destroy her life and affect her family, her children, her health. This woman did not plan to sit in a wheelchair and stay there her entire life. It is very bad to think, and it's a false belief, that we affect everything with our mind. Because there is evil out there. Here are pictures from serial killers of their victims. Harvey Gladman killed women, tied them to a table, killed them viciously, took photographs. There are other serious pictures here, shocking, actually heartbreaking, what people can do, and we don't cause it. We don't want that.
But it's wrong to think that all of these people caused that. Now, in the world, we talk about Janusian thinking. In Rome, the god Janus was the one who could see the future and the past, and he was there to look at both sides. Every doorway had Janus in it. He could look in and out. And we now know a thing called Janusian thinking. In Janusian thinking, conceiving of two or more opposite, supposedly antithetical ideas, but they could also be true simultaneously. This is known as Janusian thinking. So what we want to avoid is we want to avoid extremism, extremist thinking, that it's all or nothing. We want to try to avoid extremist thinking.
I believe there are certain things that can be connected to the law of attraction, but not everything.
It's not a law of attraction. That's an extremist idea. It's an effect of attraction.
Calling this as a law is a misleading and diluting the mind and misleading people. We have to change our belief and our thinking about it.
Materialism is just the opposite of this idealism of the mind. Both of them have some truth. Both of them have some false. It's all a blend.
Moderation in all things, including moderation.
Benjamin Franklin said this, so did Socrates. So we have to recognize we have to blend in things. It's a yin and yang.
And there are things what we can attract by believing in them, by focusing on them.
But there is a material world that we have to deal with as well. And there are evil people in the world that cannot be ignored.
And there is karma, what we can also not ignore.
So we have to blend this all together and understand more about our lives. Am I right, Rita?
Yes. We need to work on manifesting our goals, our dreams in a real reality. Being able to accept what we cannot change and we can affect, and we have to work on what we can change and what we can enhance.
Well said, Rita. So in the world of the yin and yang, there's an objective reality that cannot be ignored. There's a subjective mental force that allows us to affect and manifest things. And just like if we were to hit the golf ball into the air, nobody really knows where exactly to lie. We can't say that this person deserved to be hit. We couldn't predict it, because in the real world, things happen. Shit sometimes happens. And in the real world, there is freedom. There's freedom of choice. There's freedom of movement. We cannot predict with the force of science. We cannot predict everything with the force of our minds. We have to recognize that both of these work together. It's a yin and yang. We really don't know exactly what will happen. But we try to have the best effect with our mind, the best effect with our science. We try to calculate, we try to intuit, we try to affect things in many different ways. We have to realize that we live in a world where we are all conjoined, we're all together, a world of quantum entanglement, quantum entwinement. All things at one level are still one.
Particles interact briefly, they influence each other so that their properties are somehow connected, and yet we refrain from measuring these properties to preserve quantum uncertainty. Quantum mechanics requires that we describe the particle pair with a single combined wave function that encompasses all possible states for both particles. We call such particles an entangled pair. Now,
Albert Einstein was, there's no other word for it, a genius. He came to the idea that two particles can be entangled and an effect on one could be instantaneously felt by the other, even over vast distances. Well, for Einstein, that was simply unbelievable. He dubbed it spooky action at a distance and went to his grave a skeptic. But since then, quantum entanglement has been demonstrated time and again, and now, for the first time ever, we've taken a picture of it.
Scientists the world over have now embraced quantum entwinement, quantum entanglement, and they realize that this is a firm way that the world does exist.
According to the Copenhagen interpretation, any measurement of one particle automatically collapses the entire entangled wave function and so affects the results of measurements of the other particle. That's an influence that could, theoretically, be transmitted instantly across any distance, and even back in time, violating locality and possibly violating causality.
We didn't create all the different galaxies, all the stars. We didn't create them with our minds. They're part of a creation that already existed, but we interpret them as we experience them, as we observe them. They come into our observation, and then we interpret their existence. But now we recognize that there is an ability through time, through space, for us to not cause things, but to affect things. And we can affect our health. And we need to now look at placebo medicine. Is placebo medicine just an ability to suggest or believe, or is there an ability of the placebo to be able to affect things, to qualitatively change our bodies?
Our mind is a very powerful tool, but
that's right, Rita.
There are outer effects, environmental causes, weather, bad luck,
good luck,
other people's energies, other people's accomplishments, which can easily affect what happens to us. It is not all our responsibility.
We need to now look at placebo medicine. Is placebo medicine just an ability to suggest or believe, or is there an ability of the placebo to be able to affect things, to qualitatively change our bodies? Placebo effect, placebo medicine, the documented fact we can transform our biology, our health, with belief, with intent, with our minds. Now we've seen the effect of ESP. That's been documented, that the human being has the ability to affect things in slight ways, subtle ways. Certain people train it to get better and better, and they have the ability to learn how to do these things. This was done and showed at the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Center. So, what changes the way we perceive reality? Well, information does. New information emerges that changes the way we look at things, how we interpret things. And then our reality changes, because we do have slight, subtle effects. And inside the mind, we start to construct new realities. And then from the new physics, we now start to understand that there is the ability of the observer effect, the entwinement effect, the quantum entwinement effect, to come together to influence, not control, but to influence our environment, and thereby to create a new expansion of our powers of the mind and the powers of the body and our health. And this is where the placebo response comes in. Our ability to see and perceive and to, with our own belief, create. We are indeed the observers. We can create change and break patterns, new possibilities, change directions. All in the way we observe ourselves, how we interpret the world and others around us. And by having a more positive interpretation will make things better. If you want to help change the world, change the way you look at things, the way you interpret things. And then the things that you see will change. Be the change around the world. And now recognize that as we build a new intent medicine, intention medicine, based on not just the placebo response, but intertwinement with nature, using more natural medicines, recognizing not to look for harsh effects, but subtle effects, and using our belief to intensify those effects, we now have a new intention medicine. Now let's look much deeper into the placebo effect. We'll look at the history and some of the science.
On the North African battlefields of World War II, wounded soldiers were plentiful, but morphine was often scarce. Army doctor Henry Beecher needed to operate on an injured soldier, but had no drugs to give him for the pain. A desperate nurse grabbed a vial of salt water, filled a syringe, and miraculously, the soldier's pain went away. When Henry...
Icor.
Oh, the head underhead.
We ordered a case of codeine and look what they've sent us, placebos.
Oh, pills that do nothing.
Useless.
How much codeine do we have on hand?
About a week's worth.
I'll tell the colonel as soon as he's free.
Thank you.
Too bad they don't use placebo bullets.
Yes.
Let the soldiers just think they're dead.
Henry Beecher returned to Harvard University after the war. He found that a range of ailments, from gunshot wounds to the common cold, could be treated with fake medicine. It's known as the placebo effect, from the Latin for I shall please. So,
one of these can give you more confidence than all the deodorants ever produced.
Oh, sounds good to me.
Now, take it easy with those things. They're very potent. We don't want to turn you into an egomaniac.
Yeah, I took 2 yesterday, and now I'm so terrific I can hardly stand myself.
placebos can lead to very real chemical changes in our bodies. They can cause the brain to release its own natural pain-killing chemicals. They can even improve symptoms in Parkinson's patients by releasing dopamine. It seems like where placebos do work, our higher order brain functions are in play, like when they relieve pain, reduce stress, or even change our moods.
I tell you, I'm gonna die. Courage, Camille. I think I got something for you. This is a brand new, top secret experimental drug. It keeps the body at a constant, comfortable temperature, no matter what the weather's like. Yeah, give me one. Give me one, and I'll give you anything you want. Just keep it a secret. Now, only take one a day. You don't want to get pneumonia. Thank you. Thank you.
Tell me, Dr. Cronkite, comes winter, do you have something that will keep me warm?
Ah, I just gave him a placebo.
Really?
It must be noted that the placebo effect is a very, very real healing effect that produces healing, that stimulates the mind into producing the chemicals or the process or the electrical impulses that it needs.
How can you dress like that on a day like this?
Don't worry, sir. I know you want to keep the lid on this. I haven't told a soul about these little white miracle pills that Captain Pierce has been working on.
Pierce, huh?
Well, I want to be the first to tell you that it works. Here I stand, a guinea pig that isn't sweating like one.
I think I better have a little confab with your family physician.
Some people might think that this is some type of fakery or charlatanism, but it still is healing.
Placebo capsule works better than a placebo tablet. Placebo injections work better than placebo capsules, and placebo machines work better than placebo injections. Even having a nice long talk with a doctor before taking a placebo can increase its effect.
So what if we develop a science of intention medicine to amplify the placebo effect? And using good bedside manner and comfort and humor, let's try to make this an accelerated medical system.
These days, before drug companies can sell a new medicine, they have to test it against a placebo. The idea is pretty simple. Give one group of patients a sugar pill or something, and one the real drug. See what happens. Subtract the placebo group's improvement from the other group, and we should see if the drug has a real effect.
So medicine has to be measured against the placebo effect, but why don't we accelerate the placebo effect, thereby to remove the unnecessary side effects that these synthetic drugs cause?
Things are happening these days. Even with all our advancements in science, more and more drugs are failing to pass the placebo test. It's as if the placebo effect is getting stronger. In countries like the United States, drugs can be advertised directly to consumers.
Do you feel healthy, happy, and...
Do you suffer from nose itch? Do you find yourself having to blow, wipe, even pick? These are symptoms of a common but serious condition called dried nasal mucus, commonly known as boogers. If you'd prefer to use a pill rather than a tissue, prescription Superfluous helps to correct this problem. While taking Superfluous, you may not be able to sleep, eat, drink, stand, sit, walk, smile, laugh, speak, function, breathe, or wake up.
Comfortable? Are you not suffering from headaches, indigestion, or irritability? A lack of symptoms may be a symptom of antohypochondriasis, commonly known as invisible illness disorder, or IID. But now there's Contradictol.
Other side effects include nausea, diarrhea, bloating, flatulence, weight gain, migraines, mood swings, drastic change in libido, frequent urination, fatigue, or in other words, pregnancy. Other side effects can include internal hemorrhaging, heart rupture, brain rupture, rabies, loss of eyesight or smell, loss of eyesight and smell, spontaneous combustion, and slow, horrific, painful, tragic, avoidable death.
Your doctor if Contradictol is right for you.
All that marketing has increased our expectations of what drugs can do, and as a result, some old drugs like Prozac perform worse in placebo tests today than when they first came out.
In rare cases, Superfluous can cause dried nasal mucus to worsen, which can lead to asphyxiation. People who eat food should not take Superfluous. If you commit suicide, discontinue use immediately and dial 911. Stop boogers today. Undermine the fact your doctor spent half their life in medical school, diagnose yourself, and ask him or her about the Superfluous prescription drug, Superfluous.
In one study, patients were even told they were receiving placebos, and they still felt real results. It's likely because the doctors had told them that placebos often have healing effects. Clearly, the critical ingredient in a placebo is expectation.
No, maybe you didn't really listen to yourself. It's not just expectation. It's the powers of the mind, the powers of the positive mind to affect things. The observer effect.
So much so that a fake drug can also make a patient feel worse if that's what they're expecting. By this point, some of you are probably asking, if placebos are so effective, why not use them as real medicine? Well, prescribing one thing but telling a patient they're taking a different thing is deception. And according to Hippocrates, little white lies like those are not okay.
So now let's look at some more evidence of the placebo effect and how we can utilize it in many different ways to help our bodies, help our minds, help our lives, help our families.
Your brain on placebo power. It's a mysterious force deep inside all of us that can actually make physical changes in our body and brain without drugs, surgery, or anything more than a strong suggestion. Find out how to access this force in 5 weird connections. At first, this scene makes no sense. A college professor is apparently trying to get his students drunk.
This is yours, Joyce. The beer is free, by the way. So help yourself.
Even worse, the bar is on campus in the University of Washington's Addictive Research Center.
Are you for real?
Who is serving the drinks? The center's director, Alan Marlett, a behavioral psychologist.
It's a little awkward.
We built this because we wanted to look at actual student drinking behavior in a bar setting. If you have people drink in laboratory rooms, you know, they don't drink very much.
As you may have guessed, this is actually an experiment. Dr. Marlett wants to stop the perils of drinking by studying its pleasures. His message could not be more serious. Students consume dangerous levels of alcohol because they believe that's the only way to feel its desired effects. Nationally, this is a significant problem.
We see about half of the college students experiencing at least one episode of binge drinking in the last month. So we're really concerned about accidents and memory problems and sexual problems and you name it.
He believes the most powerful ingredient in beer is not really alcohol. It's the human mind. That is, your expectation that you will feel drunk.
We're looking at factors that might increase the risk of excessive drinking. So we're trying to figure out, is it the alcohol that does this? Or is it, to some extent, what you expect is going to happen when you drink?
12 students were simply told they'd be participating in a study about social interactions among strangers. The setting? A bar with unlimited free beer. Watch carefully. This certainly looks like college students beginning to feel tipsy on beer. They started out as strangers in awkward small talk.
Okay, let's go around the table and say our names. What's your favorite movie? What sign are you?
But as the experiment continued, the students began to display the classic signs of drunkenness: flushed faces, slurred speech, and bad jokes. Why was this respected professor offering his students alcohol?
We're going to reveal the truth here. Not everybody got alcohol.
Turns out he wasn't.
Some of you did and some of you didn't.
Only 3 of the 12 were actually drinking alcohol. The rest had non-alcoholic beer.
That's really fun. I think that's like the best experiment ever in my life. I got my face right.
Yeah, I mean, all of my friends will die. Yes, I'll be careful next time a strange man gives me a drink.
Actually, their symptoms of drunkenness were quite real. But they weren't caused by alcohol. It was something far more mysterious: the placebo effect.
You know, whenever you drink, there's 3 things going on. You know, the beverage that you're drinking, secondly, the setting that you're in, the context, other people that are there, and third, the set, that's your expectancy about your own personal expectations about how alcohol is going to affect you, your mood or your behavior. A lot of it is what we call classical conditioning. Remember Pavlov's dog? You ring the bell. If it's associated with food in the past, the dog starts to salivate. So that's a kind of a placebo kinds of things.
That kind of conditioned response can also work in people.
So if people are given a drink, here's a drink, and you're in a bar setting, you get similar effects to Pavlov's dogs. Your body starts to react as if it's having.
Also work in the field of medicine. There are cases where patients have an amazing response to a sugar pill.
If you're going to a doctor and the doctor says, you have this particular physical condition, and we're giving you a pill that should alleviate the physical symptoms that you're experiencing, often there will be lowered physical symptoms because the doctor told you that's what's going to happen.
Dr. Marlett was hoping for a similar therapeutic effect in his students.
So we think that what we're doing is kind of getting at people's psychological dependencies about alcohol, because if they're getting the same effects without any real alcohol, they probably are coming to realize they don't need to drink as much to get the same effects.
The power of the placebo has had a profound effect on the lives of the students who participated in his study.
People that are thinking, I must have alcohol to get these effects, no, you can get the effects without alcohol. So what that does is, in our research, tends to lower people's drinking subsequently.
Now we'll see how the same placebo effect can help alleviate pain. You are looking at one of the bravest graduate students ever. Either Kate is selflessly devoted to science, or she desperately needs an A. She volunteered to be burned without a painkiller.
What we're going to do now is test your pain sensitivity on different parts of the skin.
Her professor, Tor Wager, a Columbia University psychologist, is placing a metal plate heated to 110 degrees on her forearm.
So here's the first one. It hurts. I think it's like holding a hot cup of coffee. It's a very hot cup of coffee that you want to let go of, but you can't put it down just yet.
It's a very uncomfortable experiment designed to figure out exactly how placebos work. Dr. Wager's theory is that the power of suggestion actually produces a physical change in the brain, and that is why placebos are able to mimic the effects of real medicines, or make people feel drunk on fake beer.
Some of the most convincing placebo effects have been demonstrated in people's reported pain. So that's a natural place to start looking for the effects of expectations and beliefs on physiological systems. Pain can be precisely quantified. We can very carefully titrate the input, the stimulation levels, and we can observe meaningful and reliable relationships with the outcome. So it gives us something very quantitative to study.
Professor Wager's plan was to study the region of the brain that senses pain. If a placebo did affect the workings of the brain, he thought the pain centers would be the ideal place to document any changes.
This is the frontal cortex up here. And here, these are some of the key pain processing regions in the sensory cortex.
A magnetic scanner would record the inner workings of Kate's brain in pain.
You can just lie back here and get comfortable.
The more intense the pain, the more brain activity would be recorded. Professor Wager turned up the pain while the scanner recorded images of Kate's brain.
Okay, Kate, you're done with the first part?
But that is not the end of Kate's ordeal. Professor Wager is planning on another burning session, but this time he's mercifully applying a painkiller.
You can just hold your arm up.
At least that's what Kate thinks is happening. In fact, it's a placebo, just plain baby lotion with no analgesic properties at all.
We tell them that the drug that they're going to get is a powerful pain reliever, and it will block their pain. So it's really our verbal instructions to you that tell you that you should expect pain relief on this site that's been treated with this effective drug.
Professor Wager burns Kate at the exact same searing temperature as before, and there is nothing protecting her forearm other than a dab of baby lotion. Yet according to the brain scans, there is considerably less brain activity in the pain centers now than before. That means Kate actually felt less pain, a lot less.
One of the surprising things is that we found decreases in some of the pain processing regions of the brain with the placebo. Okay, now we're ready for the next one.
What this means is the brain's ability to recognize pain actually is a strong yet flexible force that can physically respond to a placebo by changing the way the neurons fire. Next, you can turn into an Olympian by simply thinking about going to the gym. Okay, not really. But your imagination can bring this closer than you'd ever imagine. So strong in the last two connections that it could make people drunk without liquor and lessen the pain of a hot plate on a volunteer's arm. Is there a way to harness this force and trick your mind into some amazing things? Could you become an Olympic athlete by thinking about push-ups? Well, no. But you'd be surprised what your own brain is capable of.
I think the mind can massively affect physical performance, especially when you get to the elite level. There's very little difference physically between the athletes, and quite often it's then that they need the mental edge over the other athletes to come first and to win that gold medal.
Dr. Caroline Wright and her colleague Dave Smith are sports psychologists with a strong workout ethic. Yet they may seem like heretics to the other gym regulars at the University of Chester in England.
One of the things that we know is that, for example, if you imagine performing a sports skill or exercising or anything of that sort, the same areas of the brain start being activated whether you do something or whether you imagine doing it. We can use imagery, we can use a person's imagination to give them a mental workout, if you will, and that results in a lot of the same physical changes as actual training would do.
Imagery is not really your imagination. Your brain actually responds with concrete changes.
a lot of people think purely in terms of exercising the muscle, but just as important are the signals that are sent from the brain down to the muscles to tell them to contract. And we believe that using imagery can enhance your brain's ability to do this, so you can recruit more muscle fibers and actually train harder and become stronger just through using your mind.
It comes down to the neurons regulating all brain movement. Think about lifting a particular weight, and the neurons will fire to some extent, even if you don't move at all. Exactly how much could a brain be fooled into developing muscles without physical exertion? The researchers recruited novice weightlifters and got them to perform a classic strength test, the bicep curl.
The participants came into the study and they went on the bicep machine to see how strong that they were, and then one group sat at the machine and imaged completing a set of physical practice. Another group actually physically practiced the task.
The workout for the control group was standard fare.
Well, I'm right to the top. When you're doing really good, keep going, keep going. A few more.
But the imagery group had a gym experience like no other.
Okay, so if you just hold on to the handles, and you're just going to complete the imagery in the way we discussed, paying particular attention to the feel of the movement. They sat at the machine watching a video of themselves completing the rep that was taken in the pre-test, and then they just tried to vividly image or imagine themselves completing the task.
Meanwhile, the control group subjects were still hard at it, wondering how they'd ended up with the raw deal. Six weeks later, everyone was asked to repeat the bicep curl strength test.
Spin it nice and slow, 2 up, 2 down.
The results? They simply flew in the face of common sense. Those in the group that lifted weights twice a week had increased their strength by 26%. But the athletes who spent half their time just thinking about exercise showed a 28% increase. Incredible. Through mental exercise, these athletes had not only kept up with the control group, they had surpassed it.
Well, my eureka moment was when I did my results section. I plotted it all onto the graph, and then I could see that the largest percentage improvement was by a group that was physically practicing less than the physical practice group. So they'd actually replaced half of the physical practice with imagery, and they were performing better. I was very shocked when that happened, because most athletes, if you asked them to replace half of their physical training with imagery, would laugh at you.
Here is how it works. The journey of nerve impulses can be set in motion by focused thought about the process of an exercise. It starts in the motor cortex of the brain. As you imagine your workout, electrical impulses travel down the spinal cord into the muscles. They command them to flex and extend, just as if they were under physical exertion. When athletes lift weights, they aren't just exercising their muscles. They're pounding down a well-worn path from the brain to the muscles through this nerve network.
I like to think of training neural pathways as walking across a field of long grass. And the first time you walk across it is very difficult to find your way, but the more and more that you do it, the easier it becomes, and the less likely you are to deviate off that path.
But don't give up physical exercise in favor of only thinking about it just yet.
Imagery is a really powerful tool, and it can certainly help you in your quest to gain fitness, but on its own, it's not going to be an adequate substitute. If you can't train because you're injured or something like that, or you're ill, then imagery can be an effective substitute. But the best thing to do is both imagery and physical training as well.
Our next connection is about as weird as they come. Imagine being able to look inside your own brain and control what's going on.
For the first time now, it's possible to image the processes of the brain in real time, live action, as people think and feel and experience sensations such as pain.
It's a fascinating new concept in brain scanning, developed by neurobiologist Christopher DeCharms. A breakthrough that came from his work with chronic pain patients at the University of California, San Francisco.
Chronic pain is one of the most devastating conditions that a person can experience. It can wreck a person's life entirely. In the United States, it leads to about $100 billion in annual healthcare costs.
His live-action brain scan could potentially be just the thing pain patients urgently need.
We're working on technology to allow people to look inside their brain in real time, watch its activities as they take place, and try to learn how to control them.
The key to the technique is actually harnessing the power of the placebo.
So the placebo effect is normally thought of as an unconscious process, one that someone isn't aware is happening to them. But it's possible that using this approach, we may be able to teach someone to take conscious control over those same systems, teach someone to deliberately produce a placebo effect, and thereby bring their pain down at will.
Dave, a long-term pain patient, needed an alternative to addictive and often ineffective medication. Whenever he saw this symbol of a campfire, he was instructed to think about putting the fire out or making the flames smaller. The fire sign corresponded with the amount of pain activity going on in his brain.
The brain has systems built within it, very powerful ones, for down-regulating pain when the need arises. We hope that we can train people to control these systems and thereby be able to gain control over their pain.
Sounds fascinating, but will it work? It was time for Dave to be scanned and have his brain activity monitored as he was watching the pain imagery of the campfire through virtual reality goggles.
All right, so you're going to decrease your brain activation during this period. So Dave's now trying to decrease the fire. As you can see now, the fire is all the way out, and the graph is going way down. He's been able to bring the brain activation quite a bit lower.
Watch the pain indicators closely. See how the pain chart decreases as the flame graphic is snuffed out? Dave has learned to control the placebo effect in his own brain's pain processing center without drugs or other therapy. And as he works at this skill, his mind can become ever more powerful.
As they get better and better, they're increasing the strength and increasing their control over this brain system.
Reducing a patient's searing discomfort by the force of suggestion just might change the entire field of pain management over the next decade.
We hope that we can learn to have a greater degree of control over many aspects of our own conscious life and also potentially over disease conditions.
Call it mind control or call it placebo power, but the day is rapidly approaching when the suggestive nature of the human brain will be tapped as a mainstream technique for improved job performance. If we can control pain, we can control stress. That's the final stage of our journey, already being considered by workers in one high-stress job that has no room for error.
As an air traffic controller, we can't make mistakes. We're dealing with lives. If I make a mistake, I could kill someone. You can't forget it. Nobody lets you forget it. It's unforgiving. It's very stressful.
Dan Olson is assigned to the very busy air traffic hub above Seattle, Washington. He is personally responsible for the safety of thousands of air travelers.
We work 60 airplanes in an hour. You're talking to maybe 2,000 people on those airplanes.
No wonder tension is part of the skyscape for air traffic controllers.
35, Roger. Fly heading of 040.
It's also a factor that can rattle the concentration mandatory for the job.
Air traffic control is about three things: focus, concentration, keeping a cool head.
The weird connections that started out with something as far-fetched as students getting drunk on fake beer now have implications as far-reaching as our skies. Because the power of the placebo may one day be used as on-the-job training for air traffic controllers.
If technology came along that would help us increase our focus and reduce our stress levels, it would revolutionize air traffic control as we know it.
With 87,000 airplanes soaring over America each day, the practical use of placebo power is as clear and limitless as a cloudless blue sky. In these 5 weird connections, scientists have only begun to tap into this incredible force inside the human brain. And it's there for the taking in each of us. Search your heart for what ails you, and one day, with focus and training, Your own brain just might be your primary physician.
Now, all medicine is intention. Those who are proficient at using good intentions will become good doctors. We need to minimize the side effects of these drugs. They have no life force, no living entity, no negentropy. We've got to get rid of these side effects, and there's all the different interactions of the different toxicities that they cause. By using good attention with good intention to give our people attention, and then recognizing natural medicine, good fruits and vegetables that would be able to really help get the fiber and all the different things needed, and using evidence-based knowledge of natural medicine. Evidence-based, very important. By blending this all together, we can come up with a new type of medicine, a new placebo medicine, a new intention medicine.